Welcome everybody, and this is exciting times. I can't tell you how exciting it is really to have your company on this really auspicious occasion. We're a couple of minutes late, but we'll blame Lizzie Jelfs for that later on in the program. What we're trying to do is firstly thank you so much and introduce you to the panel. Thank you so much firstly for the overwhelming response it's been to miEverest is now your Everest. The Everest is no longer just for the rich and the billionaires. It's all about you. So we're about miRunners making the Everest, the $15 million TAB Everest to be staged on October 17. We're about making that your race. So you can share in the prize money, the $15 million, and you can be there mixing it with the elite of the sport. So firstly, a massive thank you. I will introduce our panel, and what we're going to try and do tonight, it's not about the hard sell. We're just glad to have you involved. It's about this journey we're going to take you on. So it's not just about that 1,200 metres come October 17. It's about the path of trying to find the right horse. And when we talk about trying to find the right horse, we've put together at miEverest the best panel you could ever possibly have. Headed by, well, I'm not too sure who it's headed by. They can fight amongst themselves. But the four are Lizzie Jelfs from Sky Racing, you know so well, legendary cricketer Mark Waugh and racing enthusiast, and of course the big brains behind the all-powerful Waugh stable there at Wyong, Angland champion jockey and the best form student in the country in Daniel O'Sullivan. So welcome guys, but before we get into all the topics about trying to go into what makes you finding the right horse for the Everest, let's say a welcome to the man. He was the brains behind the miEverest campaign, and Steve Brown, who is the CEO of miRunners and miEverest. So welcome, Steve.
On your TK, thank you for your support, and thanks to all the panel who've given their time because like all of us, they deeply believe in this industry and really want to get as many people involved in the sport as we possibly can. I just wanted to get off and highlight just an opportunity for us all as slot holders. As a group, this slot's got one big competitive advantage over all the others, and that is we think that if we message this right together, that when it comes down to doing a deal with the right horse, they're going to want to deal with us if we do it right. So the more we as a group, the more all the slot holders encourage their friends to get in behind this, the more we share it socially, the bigger the message we can create. You know, when it comes down to the crunch and we're doing a deal with one of these international billionaires and they've got the choice to deal with them or with real Australia, and potentially thousands of real Australians. If we've messaged it right as a group, then hopefully they're going to deal with us. So yeah, we encourage you to share this story, get your friends in, get your workmates in, and let's position this message as our competitive advantage, because we're not here just to go on for the ride. We want to, as a group, try and win this thing.
Absolutely. That is the reason. We're not here just to make up the numbers whatsoever. So what we'll do is, I want to disclaim it because I know Mark Waugh is very, very concerned about this. I am not part of the selection panel, all right? So everyone who's put their heart out on their slot, I want the big disclaimer up there. That's why we've got the four experts. Dan O'Sullivan, from a professional punter's point of view, and you're a professional student of the game, can you sort of take us through some of the points we're going to look at with Ty, Mark, and Lizzie?
Yeah, one of the things we did, TK, was we wanted to have some structure and rigour around the process that we use to find the right horse, because that's what it's about. We want to win this thing, and that starts with trying to find a horse that gives us the best possible chance. So we put together a whole range of factors that we think are important. No one of those factors overrides any of the others. It's really about looking at the overall profile of the contenders, weighing all the factors up, and then choosing perhaps what our priority horses are, and then seeing if we can get a deal done.
Well, let's go through them. Talent and performance rating. So I hear a horse is rated, 102. I don't know what that means, mate, right? So, and I don't know whether our panel members, I'm sure they know what it means, but tell the listeners and the viewers what that actually means and what rating you think you need to win the Everest.
Yeah, well, ratings are really just a way to apply some rigour and process around assessing the merit of horse performance and horse talent, rather than just going by our eye or our intuition and saying that was a good run or this is a great horse. Ratings help to put some numbers around that, and there's a whole process and techniques that different people use to come up with those figures. I have my own numbers. So from my perspective, looking for a horse that can reach a level of around 105, that's the level these days that you need to be competitive in top sprint races. A horse like Nature Script at the moment is a good couple of lengths better than that. But we also know that on a given day, he can run below his best. So, yeah, I think finding a horse that's got the right level of talent is really important. And ratings are going to be one of the key ways that we can do that and line up the individual horses.
Dan, last year, Yes won the Everest, and he only had a rating of 96. That'd be fairly unusual, wouldn't it, for a horse to be below 100 to then improve that much? You know, is there any horses sort of this year that you think are that sort of level that can take the next step?
Yeah, well, what you're talking about there, Mark, is the official handicapper ratings, and that's different to, say, the work that I do. I mean,
Yep.
SCSS was coming through those hot 3-year-old races, and it was pretty clear to anyone that, you know, assessed horse performance through ratings, through looking at times and sectionals, that crop was elite. He actually went into the Everest with a rating of about 105.5. And I just put some notes together earlier. Interestingly, in the 3 editions we've seen so far of the Everest, the average peak rating of the top 2 finishers in each year has been around 107, and their recent rating's been around 105. So there's some really clear benchmarks established of the level that you need to get to sort of measure up to these good races. And it's definitely not just about the handicapper ratings. It's more about the process you go through just to assess the merit independent of what the handicapper might think. So yeah, last year, yes, coming through that 3-year-old crop, sort of profiled strongly. In previous years, for example, we saw Graf go into the Everest. He was only beaten a length in the Golden Rose, a race that yes came through, but that crop and those figures were much lower. The same as the year before, we had 3-year-olds like She Will Reign and Bootson who, you know, had high-class form, but just the merit wasn't there in the figures. So, yeah, it's one technique that we're going to use to try and help us zero in on the best group of horses that have got the most talent.
Another one of the crucial statistics that we look at, or one of the ratings points that we look at, is the physical scope within the preparation. And Lizzie, this is where your well-trained eye certainly comes into things. Do you actually consider ratings when you look at a horse, or do you try and block form and all that out and just look at the physical appearance of them?
Yeah, look, obviously I know about ratings and I know about form as well, but my job is purely to look at them physically. So yeah, going through a preparation, I just see, I know them so well. So those horses that are coming back from previous preparations, I just see who's developed and who's got stronger and who's taken that next step. So yeah, I guess, like, I don't look at the ratings, but I understand that that is an important factor. But I suppose where I'll be able to give my, well, my input will definitely be how a horse has returned from previous preparations and where they're at and whether they've improved. I always, going back to the winner last year, saw how much improvement that he had made from his previous preparation. And he was always a horse that we knew was going to be better as a 3-year-old. So there's a lot of, I think it's an important part, like Dan was saying, not one is more important than the other, but you can certainly put a lot of emphasis on how a horse is going from even their trials, how they return to the races, their first run. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to help you along the way.
I think it's really important to remember that I think it was 10 days before the Everest last year. Yes wasn't even in the field. So one of the other really physical, one of the characteristics we look at, Angland, is this Randwick 1200 metres, which is tough. The rise isn't like what it used to be, but the rise is still there. And you know, you say it's a hard 1200 metres, and you've got to look at that horse that's got that. One of the key characteristics that Dan looks at under a bracket is tenacity under pressure, and that's what you need against the old warriors.
Yeah, most definitely, especially if you're jumping onto a wet track as well, like we have raced on a wet track with an Everest. So you definitely want that horse that can run that really strong 1200, even 14. You wouldn't want to be going for a horse that can run a strong 11 and be a bit of a query at the 1200 in that sort of strong field anyway.
It's another important part of it, Mark, as well. What's one of your, your key criteria when you're looking at it as well? All those things, talent, performance ratings, proven in high pressure races. I mean, it is the best of the best come the Everest, isn't it?
Yeah, look, there's not much difference between a lot of these horses, TK, at the elite level. So a lot of it's going to come down to, the track conditions on the day. A lot of them are very bunched together in their ability. A lot of form lines sort of interact. So, you're looking for the horse that maybe has got that X factor, a younger horse or a horse that's not as exposed as some others. But, I don't think it's just one factor. It's a combination. You need your quality. You need something that's going to handle the track conditions on the day, and someone's going to run a strong sort of 12, 1300. It's going to be able to adapt to either, chasing a fast pace or being up, absorbing pressure. So, there's all those things that are going to come into it.
One of Dan's other, key criteria time really is racing manners and professionalism. I guess they've got to be precocious enough to run that lightning 1200, but they've got to be calm as well. It's a bit of a fine balance, isn't it, in a horse? Do you know that? Say you jump on one, do you know the right type of horse?
You do, but like you said, racing manners is so important in these big races. You don't want a horse using energy countering the gates and wasting all this energy when you need every bit of it to be able to win. So even barrier manners, racing manners, and even when you're getting that horse to hit the top speed in the last 400, you want them going directly straight where you're wanting them to go. You don't want them hanging in or running out under pressure. So there's a lot of key things in that, and fine racing manners is what you need in the top line horses.
That's a key one for you, Dan, isn't it? Racing manners. And I like the tenacity in the finish.
Yeah, definitely, TK. I mean, the racing manners works in the way exactly what Ty said. I mean, I think any chinks in a horse's armour, either mentally or physically in the way that they run, makes them a risk or vulnerable under the pressure of a race like the Everest. But just touching on something that Lizzie said, horses that are still developing, especially younger horses, if they still do have some of those sort of chinks and they can iron them out, then all of that is potential for improvement. I love looking, in a general sense, every day doing the form, looking for horses that are already showing good talent, but still look like they've got a little bit to learn about racing. So, if we can find some of those horses and they can manage to put it all together, that adds up to good scope for improvement. And that's, I think, one of the key things we're looking for.
Yeah, when you talk about consistency still, Dan, I mean, we're talking about the elite, aren't we? Because most horses have, how many peak runs would a horse have in a preparation?
Look, it depends on the horse. I mean, a horse like Red Zell, who won the first two Everests, he never really produced what I would call genuinely elite figures, but his biggest asset was his consistency. He just ran to his number start after start. I think he put together something like 9 performances in a row across a couple of preparations that were within a length and a half of his best. And I think 7 of those 9 were within a length of his best. And that was his biggest asset. I mean, on a given day, some of those other sprinters could beat him, but when it came down to grand final day, he was the consistent one. There's other horse, talking more currently, like Bivouac, for example, has enormous talent, and on his day can run to a figure that could easily win an Everest. But just in his last few runs, he started to show a little bit of inconsistency below the standard that we've expected from him. So, yeah, I think all other things being equal, we want to try and find a horse that we can really rely on to put in and produce their best, rather than a horse that might be brilliant one day, but then can finish, well beaten and gone for 200 on another day.
Well, if you find one, can you throw me into one? That'd be... It'll be nice. I guess, Mark, that's one of the key things. We're looking for consistency, but they're hard to find, aren't they? You look at Nature Strip now, I guess, is becoming more consistent. It used to be one peak run, one shocker, one peak run, one shocker.
Yeah, look, I mean, most of the horses, to be fair, at this level, they are fairly consistent. It's only the odd horse which is going to be a bit inconsistent. If you look at most of the horses in the betting, they all run to a pretty much the same figure. And Dan was right. A horse like Bivouac, he's been a little bit inconsistent, but Nature Strip is finding that consistency. He hasn't really put in a bad run his last 3 runs. And the rest of them, you know, they're all very consistent. So there's only small margins with a lot of these horses. You know, about 6 of these horses, you know, you're loving Gabby, Trekking, Geetra, Bivouac, Nature Strip, Tefano. They've all raced each other and they've actually all beaten each other on given days. So it shows that there's not much between them, and the consistency's there. There's not a horse there that's not real consistent. They're all pretty good most of the time.
Lizzie and Ty, this one's for you. This is another one of the categories that Dan looks at when he's assessing the form, and that's tactical speed. So I'll go to Lizzie. Tactical speed, the 1200 at Randwick, quite clearly. I guess Chautauqua out the back's okay, but for many, many others, it becomes a physical impossibility if you're out the back. What do you think about how do you weigh up tactical speed?
Well, it's obviously very important, but then I guess you have to look at the makeup of the race, and that's when you know. I mean, tactical speed for sprinters is always going to be important, but then when we've looked at the Everest in years gone by, and Ty will be able to explain this better, if there's not enough speed on for those horses that get back, then it's all over. But if there is a race that's full of speed, then, and you can position your horse any way you want, they don't have to go forward, they're not one dimensional, then that's something that's a great asset as well. So I think it's going to be really interesting because we know what Nature Strip does, but is he going to have anyone to challenge him this year? And that's will be interesting when Ty and Mark and Dan sort of look at the field when it is being made up, because that's when you might need your tactical speed. So to answer your question, I think it's very important in sprinters, but it's also going to be sort of, you'll be able to know how much tactical speed you need when you know the makeup of the race.
Yeah, Ty, it's better to have than not have, isn't it? Like, it's better to have 2 dimensions than just 1 dimension. I imagine tactical speed's really important from a jockey's point of view, or a bit of a blessing really for a jockey's point of view.
Yeah, I think what you said, the 2 dimensions is very important. You don't want to have that horse that just goes out there and leads all the way all the time and then gets into a race where, you know, you've got 3 other horses that have the exact same pattern and then they take each other on, and that's when you see a back marker get over top of them. So, you know, Red Zell won the first 2 Everest because he was pretty much handed them in front. A lot of jockeys, or, you know, the race was run just to suit Red Zell. So it's important to have that decent amount of speed in the race to give every horse that chance of running home strong.
Then last year, you look at the winner, Yes come from 3rd and 4th last, Santa and Elaine come from 2nd last, and Trekking come from last to run 3rd. So as Lizzie said, it just depends really on the pace up front.
Mark, one of the final category that we look at from Dan when he's looking through all this is really one for you, considering your Test career in the world of cricket, is racing manners and professionalism. Now, always your former opening partner told me, Michael Slater, big game early night, the professionalism you take from the cricket world into the horse racing world. Of course, I know you were always early to bed, but it is important, isn't it?
Yeah, I certainly was. TK, early to bed, early to rise. But yeah, look, I guess the professionalism, where it could come into it is the younger horses, how they cope with the pressure and the lead up to the race. Someone like a Farnham, he looks like a very professional young horse, what he's done so far. But they're the sort of horses where you're not so sure about, say a Masked Crusader, who has only lightly raced as well, how they handle the big occasion, how they handle the lead up to the races, if they happen to get a run. So I think it's more the unexposed horses where, you know, there could be a few question marks. Most of the other horses, you pretty much know their traits and the way that they behave and, you know, the way they handle a campaign. So it's going to be the odd horse which you're going to have to keep a close eye on them, and especially a horse like Farnham, the 2-year-old who will be a 3-year-old leading into the race.
Great to have everyone's company on this special edition, really, groundbreaking edition for miEverest in the sport of racing, which is, we're trying to break down those barriers to ownership, so you can still go to miEverest.com and get involved in what's going to be one magnificent day on October 17. This is probably, we're getting a lot of questions coming in regard for the panel, but this is one for the boss and Steve Brown, and it's a bit of a recurring question, Steve, is when do you put the blowtorch on these guys and girls? When I say guys, everyone's involved, Lizzie. when do you put the blowtorch on to make the decision?
We're big believers in empowering expertise, TK, so there will be no blowtorch. These guys make the call, and if they ring up tomorrow and say we've made a decision, we're going to back it. Or if they make the decision, a week out, we want to also give the slot holders themselves their chance to vote. So there's going to be a lot play out over the coming months, but there is no blowtorch. These guys are fully empowered alongside the slot holders to make the call, mate.
Yeah, this comes in from Phil. Are you more in favour of a mare, filly, or colt? I guess. What's the go there, Dan? Does that really matter? I mean, we've only had 3 runnings of the Everest, haven't we? So it's a little bit hard to go through that sort of process.
Yeah, look, I thought we're biased towards TK and some of those other things, especially what Lizzie mentioned about, the physicality of horses and how much potential they have to improve. So if we, nail those factors, then the sex of the horse won't come into the mix, I'm sure.
We've also got, is there a set time frame when you guys have to make the decision? I think we just heard from Steve Brown, CEO of miEverest, saying no. Mark, here's one. Will any international horses be available this year, or has the travel restrictions put a stop to any internationals coming? I think COVID's put a bit of a pay to that, have they?
Yeah, I'm not sure, TK. There is a few of the internationals in the market. Pinatubo and the horse from Hong Kong, Ethereal. I'd be surprised if an international horse is going to be available this time round. Dan might have more of a hand on that, but yeah, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I couldn't really add anything extra to that. I'd be extremely surprised if, firstly, we could get them here, and secondly, whether they would want to come here, given the environment and perhaps some of the stringent conditions that have to be put in place. So I think our focus will be on the locals and looking for the best candidate there.
This one, thoughts on if the Everest was run tight this autumn past, so the autumn just gone, say the week after the Golden Slipper leading up to the race, would you have been in your selection process excluding Nature Strip, says Michael?
No, not really. He's a consistent horse. He can throw in a bad run every now and then, but you wouldn't exclude him at all unless he was already snapped up. But you'll definitely have him in the race no matter what.
Here we go. Another question coming in from one of our viewers or listeners. This G-Tra is, I feel if G-Tra is at the top of your list, Lizzie, which I don't disagree with, then a horse like Behemoth must be considered. He ran a slashing sectionals in the Goodwin and ran past last year's Everest favourite, Santa Ana Lane. That comes from Luke.
Yeah, of course. He's a strong sprinter. Whether it's hard for me to comment on improvement and if I think he's got enough improvement to win the race, because he would have to improve to win it, because I haven't seen him for such a long time. But he's certainly a horse that has exceeded expectations each preparation. So I'm looking forward to seeing these do, what they throw up coming into the spring, and that's where I'll be able to get more of an idea about how they've come back in their campaigns. But going back to horses that are improving, and probably we're going back to that 3-year-old, we're always talking about these new 3-year-olds coming from last season's 2-year-olds. There's so many there that have got so much scope to improve that I think at this stage we'll be looking for the fresher sort of blood, so to speak, going forward. That's what I would be aiming at the moment.
Nathan has sent in his question, not typed in. Thought on the horse Rubisaki. This comes from Nathan Ty. Wow, impressive.
Yeah, funny you say that. I actually got a phone call from Joe O'Neill about 3 days after it all came out. So very consistent. You can't fault the horse whatsoever. So, like we've all sort of agreed on, we want to see these horses coming back, going through those trials again. And a couple of runs into it, who knows? We could have a up-and-coming horse like that.
Yeah, just on that, she's got so much scope to improve as well. I don't know where she is ratings-wise, but physically, she's got a lot of growing and room to move. So she's obviously a very talented type with what she's done this preparation, but the amount of improvement I'm expecting from her next prep will be, you know, something that's going to be really big.
Mark, I know you had one for Dan as well, so we should share that. That was just before we came on air. Would you like to share a horse you've got a little bit of, well, not knowledge of, but you think could be handy if trained for the 1200?
Yeah, look, I have to, Kate. Given that a lot of the horses got similar form lines, I'm thinking something that's a little bit outside the square. The horse I'm thinking of is Tiaco Shark. You know, I know he's more of a miler naturally, but you know, I think if he was set for the race fresh, I really think he's got a touch of class and he's a real X factor. I think he can do things that other horses can't do. He can, you know, he's got a powerful sprint on him. You know, obviously the Randwick track would suit him. So he's a horse that I would think just outside the square that could be a smoky if you're set for the horse. Your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, look, I've got to say, I've been on his bandwagon for a long time. I'm a huge fan of the horse. You mentioned what he can do in the sprint home. First saw that he won a race at Riccarton, I think it was, and he produced phenomenal sectionals that you just really don't see horses do, especially in New Zealand. So there's no surprise that he measured right up when he eventually came over here. So, yeah, I think he's definitely worthy of discussion because he's a super talented horse. He does have that bit of X factor, and I think that could be, you know, something important on the day, as you said, when a lot of these horses are tied together with their form, something a little bit different. He's definitely a horse that we should discuss once he comes back through the trials and maybe run.
This comes in as well from one of our listeners or viewers, I should say, of the webinar. Does a horse have to have won in Sydney or Melbourne before we consider them? We'll consider them from out of Mongolia if they're good enough, I'm pretty sure.
I think the only thing is, have they performed clockwise? That's probably the only thing against G-Tra. He's never won clockwise. Not sure if he's even raced clockwise. Dan, would that be right?
Yeah, that's probably correct. Just off the top of my head, I'm not sure that he has. And yeah, that's certainly a variable. I mean, as we discussed before, there's no one factor that's going to rule a horse in or out. They're just all individual points that we need to weigh up and try and get a balanced view on all horses and make the decision that we think's best.
Yeah, Steve, this is going to happen a few more times where we'll get more into what horses the guys are actually thinking about, our panel are thinking about. But of course, it's still important. A lot of questions are coming in. Are you sold out? Are there still unit slots available? I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, we saw an amazing response in the first 48 hours. So half of the slots went in the first 48 hours.
Fantastic.
We've then pulled back from you know, needing to get slots moved to now. We really want to try and encourage as many groups to buy a slot together, get as many friends as you can together, because we just, you know, we think this is such an exciting opportunity for the industry to introduce as many people as possible into. You're going into the top end of the sport in your first go. So we've just pivoted our marketing a little bit, so it's going to really encourage groups to buy a slot, split the cost each. Once you buy a slot, you get sent a spreadsheet which it really enables you to put your mates' email addresses in, so they're going to get all the content from the team. So there are slots still available. They are moving all the time, so I'm not sure how much longer they'll be available, but right now they're there. We really want to encourage people to get, you know, to introduce someone who hasn't been in the sport before to join the miEverest.
Look, I've got to say, everyone has been overwhelmed by the response. It's been fantastic. And people within the industry as well, the racing industry, I think they're now getting it, that knocking down those barriers and that expensive nature of racehorse ownership is a fantastic thing. And I keep saying it's pretty cool when you think that your first foray into ownership, you walk in there or you're down the pub or the club or wherever you may well be, at the netball or the hockey, you go, I've got a runner in the Everest. And I reckon that's really cool. I think that's cool. So we've still got slots available. We've enjoyed these conversations. We're going to keep having them, but to be able to log in from now on, you're going to have to be a slot holder or a slot unit holder. So go to that website, miRunners.com, and miEverest.com as well to get involved. miEverest.com to get involved.
.au, TK.
AU.
Yeah, miEverest.com. miEverest.com.au.
I'm on top of the tech. There's no doubt about that. miEverest.com.au. And Mark, Ty wants to, all the centuries you scored around the world of cricket, and you've got a saddle cloth up in the back of you we've got some questions about it. Who is it?
That's Mark Waugh. So there's a photo of him when he won the Sydney Cup, and then that's his saddle cloth when he ran 6th in the Melbourne Cup. He ran 6th behind the 2 Japanese horses, Pop Rocker and Eye Popper. And there's a photo up there, him coming onto the track in the Melbourne Cup and bucking and nearly dislodging Corey Brown, who had to hang on for dear life. So he was feeling pretty well. Kim did a good job to get him there with plenty of energy on the day.
Oh, you remember that?
Yeah, there's I think a racing book with a photo of Corey. Or I think he must have been riding really light, and yeah, he come out and he's at least as high as Kim, the strapper's shoulder. So
yeah, it's a great photo.
Very good photo.
Dan, the rankings and the topics that you've taken us through tonight, and the panels had their comments on, it's showing me exactly the length and breadth of education about professional punting and the work that you put in to try and find the winners, which is probably one reason I'm not one of them. So I'm going to work a little bit harder at it. The Ty, we thank you. To Lizzie Jelfs, we thank you. We're loving your work on Spy Racing. Mark as well, keep the winners coming for the War Stable. They're going tremendously well. And Steve, well, thanks for bringing everybody together.
Thanks, TK. You're a good man.
miEverest.com.au. All right. Put the AU on the end. Don't forget about it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Don't forget, go to the website, get involved in what's going to be a fantastic day with the best in the business. Have a look. Fantastic. Daniel O'Sullivan, Lizzie Jelfs, Ty, and Mark were along with Steve Brown. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
See you later. Thank you.
See ya. Right.
Yeah.